times people often ask me how many times do you knead it? How many of those movements do you make? And it's in the hundreds for sure, which sounds horrendous, but so for 3 kilos of clay like this, maybe 120, 150 of those movements. But if you do 2 a second, which you will do easily, like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. Once twice every second is, for 120 times is only 60 seconds, so 1 minute. It's not going to cut into your life very much. So this little bit of clay now, it's got this black in it, which is fine because I'm going to colour the whole lump, this and a lot more. But I still haven't talked to you about air bubbles. I think I've demonstrated that the clay goes around to the inside and then comes out again. I haven't really shown it comes out again, but I'm hoping you can see that logically it must do if the cone doesn't get any bigger. If there's clay flowing into it and it's not getting any bigger, then the clay must come out of it again. We saw how the clay moved around it. We also saw how it mixed the clay from the inside and moved that clay throughout the whole piece, including towards the outside. What we haven't seen is how an air bubble gets dealt with. And so one way of doing that is to artificially include one, or more than one. So what I'm going to do now is take the same lump. It's getting quite dry now, this lump. I'm just flattening it out a bit. Oops. Nearly there, that'll do. If I roll this up quite loosely, the drier it gets, the harder it is to knead. And if I just very loosely, now I'm not going to. I'm deliberately introducing air into this now. The hope is that we'll hear or we'll see how an air bubble behaves in this. So if I just start spiral kneading it, I'm deliberately trapping that air inside now. If I'm looking close like this, you can see how the black is dispersing ever more throughout this piece of clay the more I do this. What I'm hoping to do is here, it's getting quite marbled, you can see there's a distinct marbling, but look how it spreads it. It's indisputable how much the clay is spread around the whole lump by this technique. It'll be the same with spiral kneading, with ram's head kneading as well, of course. But anything to do with a spiral like this will cause this mixing to take place. What I want to do is try and get an air bubble to come out. So they're not popping, but they are, but you can't hear it. So it's more like they're tearing. Here's a good example. So there's a little air bubble that was there. And the squashing of the clay with the spiral kneading technique spreads the clay out, as we've seen, and in doing so, if there's an air bubble, it tears the clay at that point because it's very weak where the air is. It's just a thin wall, and it gets torn, which is the equivalent of popping it. But let's keep going, you'll see what happens. Over time, that black gets dispersed more and more, to the point where, like now, it's almost a sort of hazy fog in there, rather than a deliberate colouring of it. Now I'm not getting any air coming out. I can't hear any air bubbles. I can't feel any either. You can tell the clay's getting. So this is a good point actually. The clay's starting to tear on the tail. Can you see these little? These lines, there's the tearing of the clay on each of these little segments. That's telling me that the clay is quite dry now, which makes it harder to, you can tell I'm out of breath, the clay is getting harder to push. It's less plastic. Oh yeah, I'm trying it from different angles, aren't I? Let's try. I'm not getting this air bubble coming out like I want. If there is one in there, it's just getting dispersed around and not coming out yet. But I think I haven't got any. It works. you get a lot more air bubbles with wet clay after you've, say, thrown a big piece and it didn't work out. Slap the wet clay on the bat for a while, gather it all up, and then do this spiral kneading. There's often a lot more air bubbles in it. So I'm going to stop because it's it's knackering me, and I'm not getting to show what I wanted to show. It's interesting that on the bottom the marbling is sticking around. So that implies to me that the bottom bit isn't moving as much as the rest of the piece of clay. That's it. I suppose the other thing to say, the important thing to say is I am right-handed, and I have been doing this with my right hand, the pushing bit, but at least half the people who do spiral kneading do it the other way around. In other words, whereas this has a clockwise spiral, other people do it so it has an anti-clockwise spiral. They're lifting it with their... Yeah, I can't even think how to do this. I'm so used to doing this way around. And the question is, does it matter? So if I teach you wrongly, am I going to get banned from the Potter's Guild or something for teaching you to do it this way round, or rather saying I do it this way round, how about you having a go? Because you could just say, why don't we switch everything round, and whatever feels right to me, I will do it the way it feels right to me. So I'm going to use, you could say, I'm going to use my left hand instead to do the pushing, and the thing, instead of going round this way, will go round this way, and you'll get the opposites, you've got a mirror image of this shape. And the question, I suppose, is, does it matter? So when someone who does know a lot of pottery saw me first do this, he said, it's the wrong way around, Tom. You're supposed to use your left hand to do the thing, and this is all completely... It's all... it should be the mirror image of this. So I take a lot of persuading of anything that's not demonstrable. So... I just thought I'll have a go, and I've been throwing perfectly well, I think, quite big pots and so on by using this technique, and it hasn't bothered me at all. So I haven't seen a problem. And even if there were, so there's two things. If there were a problem with which way round I do the spiralling, then first of all, that would also have to be true of ram's head kneading. And I've never heard anybody say, well, when you do ram's head kneading, after you've done ram's head kneading, you have to lift the clay up this way in order to use it. Not this way, because otherwise it's going the wrong way around. I've never heard anyone say that. Secondly, I never had any problems with doing it this way around with my pots. And thirdly, even if there were a problem, look, all you need to do when you've finished, that's the other thing I have to show you, is how to finish it off. Let's say, I'll show you this in a minute. So we've finished it off, we've got our cone of clay, having done our kneading, something like that. Someone says, oh no, you have to do it the other way around. You say, well, okay, I know, normally I would do that to put it on my wheel, that's what I do, but I'm going to do this instead. Oops, let me show you. I'm going to do this instead. Right, that's what you wanted. You wanted the spiral to go the other way around. So there you are, just turn it upside down and it works fine. So if you're really worried about which way around the spiral goes for your throwing, then just turn the cone upside down. It's a ridiculous argument. It's been done by people who haven't, as far as I can tell, by anybody who hasn't done, who spouts this sort of stuff, hasn't actually tried it. They've just heard somebody else say that what the truth is. Oh well, yeah, don't let me get into that. So yeah, however you spiral knead, you can make the spiral go whichever way around you want on the wheel by turning it upside down or the right way up.